Well, usually there is a bond. There is some kind of a karmic connection between the mother and the child. But also I'm thinking of the karma that is involved when the husband refuses to take responsibility. Is he going to have to repay that karma in another way? But she had to take constant care of this child. She didn't want anyone else to do it. She didn't want to put him in an institution. And she carried his picture around with her, and he was a very beautiful young man. And she kept saying, he is so intelligent. And the average person would say, what do you mean? He can't communicate, he can't talk, how do you even know what he's thinking? Apparently to her, there was something else there, and she said, he is so intelligent. But there was a great deal of love between her and this child till he was about 18 years old. And it finally got to the point where she couldn't take care of him anymore because she had to lift him and feed him. And at 18, he was getting so big that it was difficult for her. So she finally had to put him into an institution with a great deal of thought and agony on her part to finally give this child up. And she went to see him every day, but he only lived for a few months after that, in which case it's easy to see why there was something special between him and the mother that had to be worked out. Once that situation was not there anymore, and she was separated from the mother, then the karma was repaid, and there was no need for the child to continue in that body on this earth. And he died. And it was like a release then. To me, it was like it says in the Bible, well done, my good and faithful servant. She had completed her karma and her lesson, and now she was free to go on with the rest of her life, unburdened. And he had completed with what he was supposed to do, teach her a lesson or whatever it was supposed to be, and he would go on to his next destinies, especially knowing on the other side that he had repaid a great deal of karma, a great deal of payback in this life, and so that was very, very good. But this is only one of the cases. I'm sure a lot of you out there could think of things like this with handicapped souls. How do you react? How do the caregivers react? It's a great deal of responsibility here to our own souls, because you know, if you don't pay back the karma, you have to come back and do it again with the same people. We have a tendency to come back with the same people again and again, either because we like to be with them or because there is karma to be repaid. And sometimes in my work I've found a pattern of these where they will go through many lifetimes trying to pay it back, and they can't. It just keeps repeating the same thing over and over, just the wheel of karma going round and around in a circle and never advancing up the ladder. So then I say, if it's not going to work out, you're impeding your growth and you're impeding the growth of the other person, then I would say cut it loose, tear up the contract, and let it go. And many times you can't do this consciously because the other person will not understand. Sometimes they aren't even into this. They never understand. But you do sign a contract when you come into this life. You can mentally say this to the other person. It's not going to work. Let's tear up the contract. You go your way with love, and I will go mine, and we will let it go. It's just not going to work. And you'd be surprised how things will change once you have made that release and let it go. And that's what it's all about anyway. But I've had so many strange things happen in my work. This is part of what I do, is try to understand all this. I'm the reporter, the investigator, the accumulator of lost knowledge. So by finding all these cases, I'm able to put through patterns, and I get a much better understanding of the meaning of life and what's going on the other side. Now, I've had some cases that on the outside would seem rather strange. Nobody could understand why they would happen. Because, as I said last week, the subconscious is the part that I work with. The subconscious is the oversoul, the higher self, whatever part you want to call it, has all knowledge. And every ache, pain, physical symptom of the body is it subconscious trying to give you a message, trying to tell you something, trying to get your attention. Many times it has to result to drastic measures if it can't get your attention. And they've told me that no accident is an accident. It is not, doesn't happen randomly. Everything that happens in your life happens for a reason. And I've had several that have come to me like this, and I want to give some examples that on the surface you would think it didn't have any logic to it at all. One man, as we were going over the questions he wanted to ask, said that a very important incident had happened to him a few years before. He was in a large city, and he was attacked by a gang of thugs and drug into this alley, and he was stabbed repeatedly. I think he said 7 or 8 times he was stabbed, and he was left for dead. He drug himself out to the street, and someone found him, and they took him to the hospital, so he didn't die. But it was a very horrible situation, and it took a long time recuperating from it. He wanted to know why. Why did this happen? That was one of the main things for the session. And when we did the session and got to the subconscious, it said, oh, that was a bunch of his friends that had volunteered to help him. And I said, friends? Friends like that? Who needs enemies? They almost killed him. I said, what do you mean by friends? They said, well, he was going the wrong direction. He was heading down the wrong road. He was supposed to be involved in helping people. And that's mostly the reason you come back here for anyway. I have never had the subconscious say that the reason you're on earth is to party and drink and run around with beautiful women or, sexy men and just spend your life having fun. It has never said that. It always says you're here to help people. You're here to help others on the road to the light, to help them get out of their wheel of karma. It's what it always says, that whatever you do is supposed to be helping other people and everyone around you, which it never deviates. Well, in this case, it said he was headed down the wrong way, and we tried many times. We tried to get his attention. We tried many times to steer him the way he was supposed to go, that he, instinctively, subconsciously knew he had made his contract to come into this life to do. He was going off in the other direction. So they said they tried many times to get his attention, to steer him back to where he was supposed to be. And, well, when it didn't work, the only solution was a drastic one, to have these, as he said, his friends, they volunteered on another level to almost kill him. And then he ended up in the hospital for a long time. He had a lot of time to think, for introspection, till he realized what he wanted to do with the rest of his life. They had to stop his world, so to speak. Drastic, but I tell people, if you don't listen to what the subconscious is trying to tell you, it will hit you up the side of the head. Believe me, you don't want it to happen. You don't want it to do that. I had another man who was very wealthy, and he would go skiing, and he said he was really excellent. He was an expert at skiing. And one of the questions he had was, and one time he was going skiing, and he had a bad accident on the beginner's slope and broke his leg. He wondered, well, why in the world did that happen? He said, I'm too good. This should not have happened. The next day, his plans were to go and do what they called helicopter skiing, to where, I believe the way it is, they are dropped from a helicopter on the advanced slopes. This is kind of like the ultimate, I guess. Maybe some of you out there will understand it. The ultimate in skiing. He would be dropped from a helicopter. Well, instead, the day before he was going to do that, he has this accident on the beginner slope and breaks his leg. So he asked the subconscious, why did that happen? That's what he wanted to know. The subconscious said, better his leg than his life. Because it said if he had gone in the helicopter to do what he planned to do, he would have died. So they had to keep it from happening because his life was not to be ended that easily. I've been told that about myself. The subconscious says, if you're not supposed to go somewhere, and I travel constantly, if you're not supposed to go somewhere, we won't even let you go out the front door. That something will happen, and at the time you will think it was bad, but it was really just to keep you from going. So many of us in this life, if you're supposed to do something, no matter what it is, if you're really supposed to do it, everything will go smoothly. Just like swimming upstream, swimming downstream, just going with the flow, everything is easy, all the doors open, all of the plans are easy to make. That means you're supposed to go through with it. If there are obstacles put in the way, things to keep you from going, and you have this feeling of swimming upstream, then they're trying to tell you this is not in your best interest, you're not supposed to go. And if it would be something that would result in harm to you or your death, well, in that case, they would really get drastic. So, a little strange these things are, but this is what I've found. I had another client that came to me who only had one arm. And he had lost the arm when he was a teenager in high school. And so we wanted to find out why did that happen. He had adapted beautifully. He had a prosthesis, and he had adapted beautifully in his life and made a success of his life. But it was just like, if nothing ever happens randomly, why did that happen? And it happened in high school. In those days, they were allowing the science classes to experiment with rockets and things nowadays. You know, they always say, oh, that's too dangerous. Oh, they're so careful nowadays, they won't let any chance of anything happening. And sometimes I wonder if we protect our kids too much sometimes. But in those days, they were a lot easier going. In the science class, they were allowed to experiment with rockets. And it was when he was doing this, and somehow it backfired. He was holding it in his hand, and it exploded, and he lost his arm.